Viruses. They've had an infectious impact on society since the beginning of time, and in the modern age have also proven influential in modern media. But in more recent history, we've experienced the most deadly, the most infectious, the most fear-inducing outbreak to ever take place in human history.
These past few days got me feeling a bit philosophical.
And even only a short time after, it seems as if all of us have simply forgotten that it happened. I'm of course talking about the corrupted blood plague incident in World of Warcraft. You see, long before masses of people were being forced to quarantine inside to avoid becoming infected, gamers had been self-isolating for decades.
Outside bad. Safer.
And in 2004, antisocial degens were given a gift from the gods. The premise was simple enough. Make an expansive open world full of loot, sprinkle in a dash of crafting and profession systems, and then top it all off by making it an MMO.
Look at you idiot! Why are you playing this game? You fucking dumb shit!
The resulting game was perfect. Now, instead of having a real job, gamers could gain valuable life experience by working a virtual job. But instead of collecting a paycheck, they paid $15 a month. And with these digital unions shelling out big bucks and devoting the entirety of their lives to punching the virtual clock, Blizzard knew it had to continue churning out content in order to keep the unionized masses from rising up as one to slay them. So less than a year after the game came out, patch 1.7 would add the fourth new raid to the game in the form of Zul'Gurub. Deep within the heart of this ambiguously tribal land, players could now try to zerg a sinister blood god in the hopes of securing an upgrade to their magical pants. Anyone able to master the nuances of high-level magic could find themselves at the end of the dungeon to face Hakar the Soul Flayer. A unique encounter where Hakar will attempt to siphon the life force from players in the arena and requires the attacking party to actually poison themselves, to then transfer that poison to the raid boss. To do that, the raid has a unique debuff that you can only collect in this one place known as Corrupted Blood. The debuff lasts for 10 seconds and deals enough damage to make an Ebola outbreak look like a mild flu. Fortunately, the raid in question has a recommended level of 60, which requires an investment equal to the time it would take to learn to play a new instrument. Twice. So by the time most players are headed to face this raid boss, Corrupted Blood is more of a minor inconvenience as long as you have healers nearby looking to keep you in the fight. But that's also part of the issue. See, there's another aspect of Corrupted Blood that makes this raid harder. Not only does it siphon health alarmingly quickly, it also has the added drawback of being highly contagious.
Okay, we are cooked.
If you find yourself on the edge of death and then rush back to your healer for aid,
I'm dying. Help me.
well, congratulations. You've just infected your team's only doctor. But so long as you're high enough level, you'll likely end up walking out of the dungeon with those new pants and a story to tell with no adverse effects. But this is where the ideal version of this raid comes to an end. You see, of the dozen or so classes you can play in World of Warcraft, the Hunter and Warlock class are the only ones that benefit from the use of a companion pet that can help you in a fight. So in this particularly tough encounter, it turns out that their animal companions could also contract the Corrupted Blood debuff. With pets having much lower toughness overall, most players would simply recall them before they pass out to allow them to be used again if needed. So if your special little pal got hit with the blood plague in the middle of a big stretch, you can tuck him away in your Pokeball as you and your party go on to complete the raid. One problem though. The raid was coded so that it would cleanse any infected players as soon as they left the raid area. However, it didn't do the same to any infected pets. So after you get back to town and let out your companion for a quick plop plop, the Corrupted Blood would reactivate, along with its infectious area. And on September 13th, 2005, players logging into the Archimon server would spawn to find an absolute nightmare. The infection was spreading, and there was nothing anyone could do about it. Players now had a choice to make. On the one hand, they could protect their fellow players by avoiding large gatherings, quarantining themselves, and helping to slow the spread at the cost of their own freedom and enjoyment. Or throw caution to the wind and leave the lives of their fellow low-level players up to fate and chance. While players could easily see that neither option was ideal, the right choice was clear, and players had no trouble going out of their way to... Oh my fucking god. While most players were doing what they could to wash their hands, maintain social distancing, and sterilizing their supplies, it turns out that there was little they could do to stop the real threat of the virus from spreading. In what would have come as a surprise to pre-internet age society, it turns out that there were more than a handful of players that saw the spreading of corrupted blood as an opportunity not to protect other players, but as an opportunity to sow chaos.
You serious?
Before long, high-level players that could withstand the damaging effects of the virus were navigating to uninfected areas just to set the town on fire and dance among the ashes. While this steaming pile of white-hot dog shit would have been enough to frustrate even the most unshakable of players, it turns out that the trolls were actually the least of their concerns.
We should take it to AB and spread it to the alliance. That'd be pretty funny.
Players spreading the virus on purpose was bad, sure, but it turns out that corrupted blood was able to infect not just players and pets, but NPCs as well. While bugs affecting NPCs wouldn't normally be a huge issue, NPC health was coded in such a way that they regenerated health faster than the virus could actually deal damage. On top of that, NPC health was invisible, which meant that quest givers and merchants were now all asymptomatic carriers of a plague that would have a drastic impact on players' health bars.
Ow! It went to 0!
To make matters worse, this also included town guards on patrol, which meant there was now a collection of roaming plague spreaders that would likely cross paths with pretty much any player that came into the city looking to stock up on supplies. Some players would attempt to dissuade people from entering the city, though these blockades seemed to have little effect. While the plague spreading thus far had been bad, there was another extremely unique factor that was about to make it a lot worse.
No!
With this taking place all the way back in 2005, YouTube had only just gotten its start.
And that's pretty much all there is to say.
Just getting online to see your favorite streamer or surrender to the brain rot wasn't even a thing yet. So, if you wanted to know what was going on, you had to read ancient scrolls that provided you this knowledge. They were called forums, and according to professional historians, they remain one of humanity's greatest mistakes. Players would log on in droves to keep up on the latest happenings of their favorite server, and what's this? A virus. Spreading across the entirety of the server? Almost anyone who gets it dies? Surely these must just be rumors. Better log in to have a look-see myself. And with all the precaution and care of teens on spring break, even more people were logging in droves.
If I get
corrupted blood,
I get
corrupted blood.
At the end of the day, I'm not going to let it stop me from partying.
As the word spread, so too did the virus. And before long, entire cities were nothing but graveyards of all those players that were health bar compromised enough to succumb to its effects. It wasn't all bad though. While there were plenty of people looking to cause problems on purpose, there were also a large number of sacred souls who saw the outbreak as an opportunity to help their fellow players by setting up healing stations. Sort of. A little bit. And while some were helping those out in the world, there were also guilds that set up strongholds to keep players quarantined and safe while they waited for things to blow over. It went about as well as you'd expect. By the time the virus had reached a fevered pitch, the devs were scrambling to find a fix. But there wasn't anything they could do without implementing a hotfix that wouldn't come for hours or days. So, with most players unable to actually play the game, they pulled the plug and reset the servers. A hotfix to patch the bug was launched shortly thereafter, and the corrupted blood incident had come to an end. Sort of. In the aftermath of corrupted blood, there was a flurry of mainstream media and news coverage, and there was one group of people looking at the event for other reasons. Scientists. It turns out that researchers hadn't considered MMOs to be potential testing grounds for how viral infections can be spread, and wanted to study the data from the corrupted blood incident to develop better models on how society at large would react to a widespread pandemic. But this was largely abandoned, as it was considered too unrealistic to rely on data that involved so many people actively rebelling against quarantines and safety protective measures. Okay. The event also inspired some interesting art in the form of this scrotum box. 3 years later, Blizzard would actually introduce a similar virus to the game on purpose as a promotional event for the release of Wrath of the Lich King that would turn players into zombies. Which, of course, ended up resulting in hordes of zombies grouping up and overwhelming smaller groups of players in low-level areas. Community opinions on the event were mixed. And the most important takeaway in the aftermath of the event is that we as a society learned to come together, to really count on one another, And that is why people who play WoW are actually the best kinds of people you'll ever know. Until I see you next time, party on.
Mama told me one day I'ma grow up big and I'ma be a king, and my papa told me it's okay to sit where shit hurts, don't forget your dreams 'cause they'll get you through.